The Women's Leadership Institute in the Auburn University College of Liberal Arts is pleased to present Leaders Educating Through Discussion. We hope you will take a moment after you watch our presentation to add your own voice to the dialogue on our website, auburn.edu/women's leadership.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here, and if you would indulge me, I wanted to share a very 10-second story that connects me and Dr. Maisie. She hired me as the Dean of the College of Architecture, Design and Construction 4.5 years ago and made me the offer sitting in her car in the parking lot of this hotel. I was really, really excited and hungry to be here, and I was delighted to be made that offer. And the minute I heard it, she immediately followed up by saying she may not be here when I started as the dean because she is a finalist at Bowling Green State University. So in 30 seconds, I had a whole span of emotions. But I never anticipated that I would have an opportunity to be here on this stage with her and with my colleague, Sharon Haber, who spent a little bit of time in my college, so I'm very, very proud. Mary Eso Smith, Dr. Smith, is from my neck of the woods in India, and so to come from a completely different country, half a world away, and to be here a few feet from each other is really surreal and serendipitous and wonderful. And Dr. Gwendolyn Boyd has really been in the press for many difficult decisions that she made, but what I wanted to say was it was really, really telling that a few months ago at the convocation of her institution, she got a standing ovation, a sustained standing ovation from the people that she is meant to serve, which was the faculty and the staff of that institution. So it is an absolute privilege to be here and to have all of you here. So thank you and welcome. This panel, for those of you who've been following national politics, is not going to be that kind of a panel with moderators trying to get gotcha questions. This is meant to be a gentle conversation. I don't have questions, I have prompts. And these prompts that I have are a curated list that students in the Women and Leadership course, Dr. Anna Kramberg, Dr. Barbara Baker, Dr. Chipeva Thomas, and I put together. And the whole point of this conversation is for us to celebrate what they have done, to be inspired, and to learn lessons from them. So that's the kind of intent of our discussion today. What I'd like to do is to set out the format. I'm going to have a few prompts that will allow them to speak. I may change up the questions between 2 or 3 of the speakers because we want to get a variety of experiences, good, bad, difficult, but all candid. And then we will ask that each of the panelists ask each other a question, something that they want to ask one of them, and use that as a segue for the audience to ask any questions that you may have. I also want to mention that immediately after this panel, we've got a reception where you can mingle with all of them. It's going to be in the terrace room. I will remind you again. And Dr. Kramberg is going to be the timekeeper, so she may be signaling me and telling me kind of wind up or do what needs to be done. So without further ado, and we can go in any order. They're all accomplished type A women. So I'm sure I don't need to call on any of them. They will be ready to jump and answer any questions that we may have for them. And whoever wants to get started, that's fine. Can you tell us a little bit about your leadership journey to where you are right now?
Well, good afternoon to everyone. And I think the only thing that sets me apart, one of the things that sets me apart, is this is my first time on the plane. So I'm excited to be here. Heard a lot about it, and so now I'm finally here. Thank you for the invitation. Part of my introduction, I'm from Montgomery, went to Alabama State, and then spent some time at Yale and studying, and then a lot of time at Johns Hopkins, and 33 years to be exact. And I cannot say this was on my bucket list or one of the things I desired to do, but when the call came, I had to come, for this is indeed an assignment and not a job. So I have had many stops on the journey. My 33 years at Hopkins sent me through a lot of different areas, finally working directly with the president, but all in leadership capacities. I'll talk specifically about in working with our diversity council, as many of our schools are still dealing with the issue of diversity and inclusion. I had the task of leading Hopkins as the chair of our diversity council, working with all of the deans, faculty, staff, and student body in seeing how we could come together as a community to make those things happen. And when you do that, you have a chance to meet all the personalities, and learn how to work with them to solve your problems. So I think part of that has helped me prepare to be back here at Alabama State University, yes, in the press, for an entire year. I'm so glad not to be in the press anymore, not for any of that. But it helped me handle difficult personalities and know how you want to move the agenda, because we know what we need to do, and it's just about getting everybody on board so that the boat can go forward.
I guess I'll go next. Before I answer the question, I should say it's so very lovely to be here in Auburn and to see so many students here. I know that there are faculty and staff here, but I'm especially thrilled about having so many students in the audience. So thank you for filling the room like this. My path in administration and leadership has been pretty standard or normal, in the sense that I became chair of a department, dean, provost, etc., except for one thing. When I graduated from Auburn and started my first job, and went to Ithaca and then to St. Louis University, where I was going to get tenure, and where I did get tenure, and etc., my horizon was simply scholarship and teaching. I had never thought about administration. I never thought I would go into administration. I didn't think faculty went into administration. I thought it was just an alien world. But an honors directorship opened, and the associate dean of the college, Dr. Noreen Kurochi, with whom I still stay in touch, and who's now president at Newman University in Wichita, Kansas, called me in and she said, "I'd like you to apply for this position, and I think you would do really well." And I can tell you I was just shocked, because I hadn't thought about it. I had no idea how a university honors program worked. Remember, I did not do an undergraduate degree in the US, so all of it was sort of scary. But I did, and I knew that she was going to appoint me, and she did, and that was my first sort of administrative role. I've never forgotten it, because I've tried to do that over and over in my own career. When I was dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, I called the chair of the sociology department, who happened to be in a chairs meeting with me once and disagreed with me quite a bit, and I thought she would make a great associate dean, and I called her and asked her to be my associate dean. She's now provost at Bridgewater State in Massachusetts. I've done that in other spots as well. One of my other persons that I pulled up and said, "Come and work with me," has gone on to become a dean elsewhere. So in some ways, I think it was the most important thing, it seems to me, is that people sponsor you, have faith in you make the leap that you never considered and never thought you could make. And I think that makes all the difference to careers.
I guess I would like to piggyback on that, and sort of as the takeaway for all of you, kind of thinking about what are the opportunities that emerge, and when they emerge, deciding that you'll take the leap of faith. So I also always thought I wanted to be a faculty member. That's what I was doing, and was in a department and just was involved in the department. So when there needed to be a diversity plan, I put together the diversity plan. When there needed to be a recruitment plan, put together the post-tenure review plan. And then when the department chair stepped down and everyone said, well, who should be the department chair? I had been in the good position to have done several things, and they said, well, Sharon probably should, which was really positive. And that was the first step that set me up. Then I came to Auburn as the associate dean of Dean Nathan's College. At the time, she was not the dean, and in fact then was the associate dean. And after a couple of years, I was in the provost's office actually for a meeting with the dean and the provost, and I was leaving, and the provost said, Sharon, I want you to come back and talk to me sometime. I want you to think about coming into the provost's office. And I kind of thought, well, that's interesting, but let that go. And several months later said, well, what did you mean by that? What was that about? And so what I'd say is for you, and thinking about it, when opportunities come along, and they don't come along all that often, you have to listen. And that was one where I walked away from that and I didn't know exactly what that meant. And then it was a couple months before we followed up and had the conversation, why don't you come become an associate provost, work here and think about, here are some things, which was fantastic. And I, it's looking out in the audience, had the opportunity to work with many of you during that time period. But if I hadn't decided it was worthwhile to circle back, and because that wasn't something I thought about, that wasn't something that was really on the horizon as to what I saw. My trajectory was really stay in the college and do great things, and beyond, my philosophy is always figure out what you can fix, help people, make sure that you're making this place better than it was, and keep going. And it was a nice opportunity. So I'd say for all of you, think about when opportunities emerge, make sure you take them. And sometimes that's scary to do, but it's a fantastic thing.
Well, I totally agree with everything that's been said, and so it's, first of all, great to be back on the Plains and at Auburn University. And, I just believe that higher education is the key to living the American dream. As I reflect, I was born into a very, very poor family in West Virginia, where my father died when I was a year old, and I was raised by a single mom, probably the only person in this room that attended a 4-room schoolhouse and grew up in a house without any indoor plumbing. But you never know where you could end, because higher education is the key to success. And, I always thought it was just, I love to go to school. And so that's what I still do. I'm a student of Bowling Green State University right now, because I learn every day from my fellow students there, from my colleagues there, from my alums. And I've been very, very fortunate. I really never thought I'd be, I didn't even know what a PhD was, but once I got it, I wanted to be a faculty member, right? I mean, remember, my dear mother didn't even have a high school education, but I just kept going to school, and I became a faculty member. And then someone said, why don't you go into administration? I was a department chair, a center director. I went off and directed the Office of University Partnerships at HUD for a year and on an IPA, and I learned there. And then I came back and I became a dean at 2 different places. And by the way, I do believe the dean's job is the best position in a university after having been in many of those. I love being provost here at Auburn. And it's never about me. It's all about what you do, and you come in and seize those opportunities, as the others have said, and you build the institution, and you build its future, and you make sure that it's great when you leave and you move on and let others take over and play that leadership role, and that's what's most important. So, thank you.
Thank you for that background. I've got a quick follow-up, and I'd like just 2 of you to respond. And I make sure that each of you get your fair share and fair turn. And this is specifically to Dr. Mazie and Dr. Boyd. Dr. Mazie, you followed Carol Cartwright as the president of Bowling Green. So you followed a female president. And Dr. Boyd, you were the first female president at Alabama State University. Can the 2 of you talk about what difference, if any, it made having a specific kind of predecessor and the gender, whether it made any difference in your journal?
I think it does, because I was the first woman dean of 2 institutions and first woman provost here, although Sharon had been interim, so sorry about that. First, I guess not interim, but what I would say at Bowling Green State University, we had for 15 years an African-American president, followed by a woman president, followed by a second woman president. We're probably a rather unique institution in the country. And I think it does make a difference. It does make a difference, but again, it's about how you continue to lead and be a consensus builder and provide facilitative leadership to your institution.
Coming in as the first female president, being number 14 in a line of 13, and many who stayed at Alabama State University for a very long time. And you come into an environment sometimes, and I think that's a part of what the swirling is about. Is she ready? Is a woman capable of leading? And that's part of the center of a lot of the chaos. No one will say that outright, but the continuous questioning of your credentials. You went to the same college that some of other people went to. I think Alabama State's a good place, went there. Yale, pretty good school, got a degree there. Howard University, pretty good school, got a degree there. But you don't question anybody else who went to those schools. And so part of it is a settling and saying, I know I belong, I know I'm qualified. So you can ask all the questions you need to ask, but we're going to move this train forward. So gender does make a difference, especially when you're the first. I've been the first of a lot of things. I was the first to get an engineering degree, first African-American female to get an engineering degree from Yale. So I'm familiar with being first. And so it means that you have to stand in your own authority and know that wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. And then exercise that right and don't let anybody push you off.
This is a question for all 4 of you. What do you wish you could absolutely do in your current role, but you just cannot for whatever circumstance?
I guess I'll try that. I can tell you that when I was president, I know that there was something that I wanted to do that I couldn't easily do. I lived in a campus that was bounded and guarded, and the president's house was in the very center of the campus. And anytime you went out, you were caught on camera, and the guard gate as you left. So there were times when I tried to sneak out to take a train. You weren't allowed to take trains, things like that. So there was a kind of lack of freedom of movement. In my current job as provost, I can tell you that I miss most a role that I loved as president, and that was fundraising. And while the provost does some fundraising, the president looks outward and the provost looks inward and at the institution. And I miss the fundraising part of my life as an academic.
I have to say I'm a little torn on this one, right? I'm not sure that there's a lot that I wish I could do. I'm still relatively new, 7 months on the job, and I am still loving it, but you all know, like anything, there are politics and there are difficulties and there are budget struggles and there is, dealing with building my team and the team that I'm certain is going to support what we're doing and how we're moving the university forward. But those are all things that come along with time. So I don't feel like I am constrained in not being able to do something. I mean, you gave the example of coming and going. I can tell you, I still go to the Walmart near my house on a Sunday and I have gone in jeans, I've gone in sweats, and then I run into people who say, and see, Mary Ellen and I actually live 20 miles apart. Bowling Green and Toledo are 20 miles apart. We see each other, but I will, if I am at the store and I'm in sweats and I'm like, oh no, so that's probably the worst part. But for the most part, things are good, and there are struggles all the time, but there are not things that I'm not able to do really in the position.
I concur. There's not any one thing that I'm not able to do. I do the sweats at Walmart too. But people also use that as an opportunity to get the ear of the president.
They do.
And so, can I just tell you one thing? Which turns into 10. And then you leave without groceries. But I don't think there's anything that I'm not able to do. Certainly, as president and CEO, you have full authority and you work for the board. Those are the people who are in charge. So I cannot identify one thing that I'm not able to do, but certainly being able to get out, to do fundraising, is all a part of the job, and you have to take it as it comes.
I'm in my 5th year, and what I would say is that I don't think we can change quickly enough in higher education today. Higher education needs to go through a transformation. We need many challenges, and changing an institution is not always the easiest task. And especially as you try to bring everyone along with you as you do that change. And then on the other side, I do get put on makeup to go to the grocery store, and I never dreamed I'd have to do that. But I mean, I live in a small town, and yes, you did get lobbied on a continuous basis, and everyone thinks they can do your job just as well, if not better.
Dr. Ava, you mentioned you've been in your role for 7 months. How long does the honeymoon last for the new president?
I still got it going, so there you go. So it's kind of interesting. Now I am going to take this opportunity, I'm going to show you a couple slides. You are here in Alabama, and I want to make sure that I, as the president, show you Toledo. So I've got 5. We're going through, we'll start, this is the city of Toledo, next. We have a Chrysler Jeep plant, 6,000 employees. So when you think about, we are an hour south of Detroit. So next slide, this is the campus, that's the main building. My office is in that building. And then this is, next slide, the overview of the campus. And the last slide, this is our health sciences campus. We have a medical school, pharmacy school, respiratory therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. We have a hospital. So part of the challenge that I took on was being at this institution that has a large health sciences campus. We have our engineering college has something like 4,000 students. So it's a huge STEM-focused school, which is in part how we balance our universities, because ours has a different set of graduate and professional programs. So what I tell you is, coming in, I do have some budget issues that we're working on, and what is going on is the honeymoon. I'm going to be using some of my political capital in the coming weeks, because we're going to have to deal with some budget cuts to be able to balance it, to be able to make some progress and move forward. Otherwise, we would be really whittling away at this for the next several years, which means that you're not going to make progress. The nice thing is that I meet with the faculty senate regularly, and they said, well, it's kind of nice that you still have political capital and that you have the opportunity to do this. So they have been very kind in working with me. We have done some good things, and for the most part, they've been pretty happy with the progress that we've made.
Dr. Smith, this is a question for you. This is a question for you. You've been at a few institutions that were going through some very tough circumstances, and you had to make some really firm decisions. And they are difficult decisions. At what point, or at some point, you just say it is absolutely not worth it and decide to do something completely different?
So when I was first in the dean's role, I assumed, of course, that as long as you do the right thing, that was enough. I think I've learned the hard way that that is not enough. And it was an enormous leap for me. And I don't think I was a very good administrator. There's a part of me that thinks, I wish I could go back and chart my career again and do all the things I did. I would do it much better than previously. When do you give up? I should say that when I served as president of Manhattanville, I walked into a college which I knew had trouble. It was in difficulty with the Middle States Commission. But I knew I could also take the college successfully through accreditation. I mean, that was my expertise as an academic. But I walked in and discovered that the college had run afoul of several other organizations, like the Department of Ed, the New York State Department of Ed, NCAA on scholarships because it was a Division III school. And when I interviewed and met with the board and I asked to meet with all of the board members, the executive committee of the board said, oh no, you don't need to do that. The other board members go along with what the executive committee says. And then I discovered very quickly that the board itself was deeply divided. The women in the board had hired an attorney and were fighting the males on the board who were on the executive committee who had hired their own attorney. Wow. And I was there really just absolutely horrified that I'd walked into the situation. And I'd walked into it by being a naive person who'd been flattered by the possibility of having been nominated for a presidency, etc. And I almost quit, at the end of my year and a half, but a colleague of mine, another president, said, no, don't do that. Get through the accreditation, get the things cleared with the Department of Education and other things, and leave on a high note. Leave on a note in which you can say, I accomplished many things and got the college through several of these things. And that's what I did. But after that, I was exhausted because every morning I was sick in my stomach from the fighting that was taking place. And this is New York, people are a little bit more in your face than here. And there was a sense in which everybody was from Wall Street, and they brought the Wall Street mentality to bear on campus. And after that, a friend of mine asked me to step on to serve as executive director of a board, executive director of an organization that puts children in schools from slums in India, and that's what I did for a little while. But within a very short time, I knew I'm an academic at heart. I like being among faculty. I want the academic atmosphere. I want the university atmosphere. And so I called a search agent who said to me, oh, a search at St. Martin's failed. Would you like to throw your hat in the ring? It's a great place. And that I literally applied in April and was appointed in July. And it's a very different kind of place from the East Coast. If any of you are up in Seattle, you should let me know and come by. There's a kind of calm about the place. People are willing to work together. People are polite and friendly. And so far, I'm only in my third year, but the faculty and I have worked very closely on so many things. And so it's a kind of joyful, and perhaps it's partly my age. I'm no longer interested in the intensity. I'm interested in making the shifts gradually and well. So.
Thank you. This is a question or a prompt for all four of you. All four of you are at your institutions, you're perceived as the change agents. How do you strike that right note or that balance, like Cinderella, not too big, not too small, just right, that you don't move too fast and you don't move too slow? How do you constantly navigate to make sure that your momentum is what the institution's momentum needs to be as well?
I think part of it is being consistent and communicating a constant message to those who are impacted. When I arrived at Alabama State, throughout the interview process and the first day I got there, I said, we are going to become a strong STEM institution. And I think if you ask anybody on campus what my vision is, they'll say STEM. And so no one is fighting that. But there is an appropriate pace to get there. One of the things that we have to do in order to get there is to collaborate more So I've been out talking to other presidents and, trying to find ways to do that. Next month, I'm hosting actually all of the presidents of HBCUs at Alabama State for a STEM conference sponsored by the National Science Foundation. So I think it's communicating the message, being very consistent, being very persistent, if there are those who don't agree with the message, find out why and understand, that it is important in this 21st century environment that that most of our campuses need to be STEM focused in the careers and opportunities we're offering young people.
When I arrived at Bowling Green State University, the faculty had just unionized, and I had the privilege of negotiating the first contract. The faculty salaries were low, and started doing some benchmarking. And so in the first year, we eliminated 150 faculty positions. And the faculty today are their salaries are moving toward market salaries. And they are with us totally in terms of recruitment and retention. Over the last 3 years, we've admitted the best academically prepared classes in the university's history. The enrollments are on the rise, and we're at a historical high in retention at BGSU. So it's about how you communicate, as you just said. It's how you make tough decisions and how you keep moving the university forward.
I want to echo the communication and then say, again, sort of new person coming in, spend some time before you act dramatically and change things, and make sure you understand if there are sacred cows, what they are, who they are, why they are, and what's the background story. So, and I've seen, when I was a provost, I saw a dean come in and let an associate dean go, and I'll give this example, and the reality is it turned out to be a very bad thing for that particular college, because person didn't check to see that person had really held that college together for decades, and everybody in the college was just completely devastated by that, really upset, and that person hadn't done the homework to say, let me look and see, what does this look like, what is the landscape, and what's going to be the fallout if I do this. So some of what I've spent some time doing is making sure that I'm developing relationships on campus and off campus to understand what are the consequences of any of the actions that we do, knowing that there are tough decisions that have to be made.
I guess I can echo everything that's been said, but I have to say, on some level I recognize, and I have to remind myself regularly, that working at a slower pace does not come naturally to me, right? I mean, on some level you want to keep moving quickly, and so the check on that is the most important thing for me. And perhaps this question I should be able to answer in May. My faculty are working through revising the core curriculum. And as you know, a great deal of blood has been spilt on university campuses when faculty revise the core curriculum. And this has been in the works for 2 years. It's theirs. They own it. They've done a great job. The faculty are going to vote on it. I think it's going to pass. But I've sort of recognized too that if it doesn't pass, it isn't the end of the world. I think at an earlier, younger age, I thought everything needed to move forward always. And I now recognize that you can move some things and some things might not move, and it's all right if they don't.
Thank you. My next prompt is, we live in an increasingly measured and metrified world, if you will, where everything has to be quantified. So as the leader of your institution, what role do you play in setting some very important but tangible and sometimes difficult to defend and articulate aspects like inclusion and respect and diversity and morale and just feeling good about being at a particular place? Can you talk to us about that, please?
I will first comment on that. I think that yes, we do live in a world of metrics, and particularly in the Ohio system, we're mandated on those metrics on a continuous basis. But yes, our campuses are first and foremost relationship driven and goal driven, And you know, we all have to have respect and dignity for everyone. I mean, that's the world I grew up in. No one's any better than you, and you're not any better than anyone else. And you know, that's being out there with our students, being out there with our faculty and talking with them, listening to them, and knowing how you build that consensus. And most of all, making sure you have great role models. When I arrived at Bowling Green State University, the president's cabinet was all Caucasian. And I'm very proud of the fact that, you know, we have 3 African Americans on cabinet today. So you have to change. You have to make sure you change. They're outstanding individuals. And we need to make sure that we have role models for all of our students. And we show that dignity and respect for our students first and foremost, and our faculty. And the alums always come along with you, I've found, because they love the institution too.
I think respect is paramount. It is one of those things that you must have. We may disagree, but you still respect who I am as a person. I think one of the old sayings is we can disagree without being disagreeable, although we don't see a lot of that. But let me stay on point. But when we come to our campuses, they are institutions of higher learning. And one of the things that our students learn is how to get along with people who are different from them. They've come up in a community, they've gone to middle school, elementary, middle school, high school with the same people pretty much. And now you're on a college campus with people from all over the world. I know at Alabama State, and we share this a lot, I have students from 40 different countries and about 35 different states. And so there are a lot of people who don't think like people from Alabama because they're not from here. They didn't grow up here. But there was something in our curriculum that brought them to Alabama State. But it is important that respect at every level, faculty, students, staff, be given across the board. And there is no getting around that. Inclusion is one of the things that's also very important, and because that's the world that our young people are going to have to live in and operate in when they graduate. So they need to see it and be exemplars of it while they are on campus. We have a lot of different clubs and organizations and groups, you name them, we have them. But and all of that is wonderful. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to get along with your roommate and the people at your residence hall, the people in your classes, because you never know where that relationship is going to take you or where it's going to meet you again 20 years later.
Well, so just to dovetail on that, and it's been something in diversity and inclusion on my campus, in particular, has been a hot topic within the past month or so. And there was an incident on campus which then I wound up having to get out in front of. We did an investigation. We're working through all of that. Spent a lot of time meeting with students, making sure that people understood what was going on. What I'd say is that when I got to campus in July and recognized that we didn't have a diversity plan, I hired a special assistant to the president for diversity. We're putting together a diversity plan. We're working through some of these things, and we actually had forums scheduled to talk about providing input. And so interestingly, all of that was scheduled, and then we had an incident. And the positive thing was that we recognized the issue ahead of time. What I tell you is now, the campus is very clearly talking about what does it mean, what does diversity, what does inclusion mean, and we have spent a lot of time communicating and making sure that everybody is along with us. And it's interesting because Mary Ellen and I, we talk off and on, but she's probably seen most of it in the paper because of course then our local paper carries all of this story and the information. What I'd say is though, really, we are on top of it, we're working on the plan, and it's been a really, I guess, difficult time to have to work through that whenever there's an incident on campus. And the positive is that, you know, we had some of the work in place. I saw the issue coming in, and we had started working on it, and I think we'll be in a better place as a campus in a couple months when our diversity plan is done. So interestingly, before coming here, the gentleman who is serving, and he's an anthropology professor, and he's serving as the special assistant to the president for diversity, and he texted me and he said, well, I met with the Black Student Union last night, and they understand where we are in the process, and they understand what's going on. And by the way, the president wants to buy you one of their t-shirts. And I said, you know, the president of the Black Student Union wants me to, and the fantastic thing is, I know him, I see him, we talk, and now what he's said is, you know, he's been on campus, this is the first time he's connected with a president, and every time I see him, you know, he's been in my office, we spend time communicating, because our campus hadn't done as much communication probably as we need to be doing, and we're really working through that now.
So I think despite all of our commitments to inclusion, our systems are such that there are implicit or explicit structures in place that prevent inclusion. We're all old institutions, and I think we have to examine all of our structures, even the ones that we're very proud of. I'll give you an example of something that happened to me when I was at Wheaton College in Massachusetts. In my first year there, we hired, for a small college, great college, the faculty had the best kind of shared governance I've ever seen. And we interviewed for about 10 positions, and you can imagine that means 30 candidates. There was absolutely no diversity in the candidate pool, not a bit, right? I was very stunned by this. My home is Philadelphia. I mean, I'm accustomed to a different world. And after the searches were done, I didn't intervene. After the searches were all done, I met with all the chairs of the departments. And I said to them, I want to just go through all of the applications that came in, and I did. And I realized something very crucial. Every department had made the first cut on candidates by saying, had the candidates gone to a liberal arts college like Wheaton, that is, similar colleges, they were looking for Wellesley, Smith, you know, people that even more strongly known. So I said to them, this is the first criteria you're using, and this was in, 2006, say. And they've had to have had their doctorates by then. So let's go back in time to when these liberal arts colleges might have had the kind of diversity one needs, and they're smaller in number, they graduate fewer students than the big state universities or the big universities. I said, what are the chances of you having a diverse faculty? And they said, but this is very important. We need people to understand the liberal arts culture. I said, well, why not have a seminar at the beginning of the year which introduces new faculty to the culture of a small liberal arts college? And that's what we did the second year. And I have to tell you, it was dramatically different, because I had one single criteria that had been part of the history of that college for years and years and years was something that they had to give up. So I would say all of us need to examine our structures. In our structures, there lie things like that we're proud of, that might impede our ability to be inclusive. And I have to tell you, groups automatically, I think, activate tactics of exclusion in all kinds of little ways, right? And we have to be ever watchful that that doesn't happen.
A big part of serving as a leader is mentorship. So can you tell us about who has been your role model? And the second part of the prompt, if you will, is, are you serving as a mentor to a specific individual? You don't need to tell us the person's name, but are you doing it as part of your formal or informal role?
I actually have two mentors. I think they're the greatest people in the world. Dr. Janetta Cole, who served as president of Spelman College and Bennett College for women. And I've known her a long time, and she very much encouraged me to do this. In fact, she encouraged me before I did this to do it. And Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, who is the president of the University of Maryland in Baltimore, who is a native of Alabama, and his parents met on the campus of Alabama State University, so he loves ASU because he said with no ASU, he wouldn't be here. But they are both very precious to me. I highly regard their sage wisdom and counsel in everything that I do. I look at them and their examples of how they have gone through all the situations they've gone through, how Freeman has grown in UMBC into a world-class institution for STEM. And we're both mathematicians, so that's how we're also connected. And because I know how much they have meant to my life and how important it's been to be able to call them in the middle of the fire to say, how do I put it out? I know that it's important also for me to reach back. Right now, my mentoring is very informal because people know they can just make an appointment, come by, and just talk to me. And again, going back to the communications piece, I think that it's so important as a president to be available, to be open, and to be the open communicator so that people can see you as accessible. And they can't just stop you as you're walking across campus, as my students do, and say, you know, what's going on? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And I know that's important. I learned that, again, from Freeman and Janetta. And so I want to do that for those who are in my charge.
I've been very fortunate to work with a number of university presidents, and I always value their advice. Certainly Dr. Gouge, right here at Auburn University, a number of times since I've been president, I've given him a call and ask him a question, and he gives me very good advice. But certainly David Sweet, who was president at Youngstown State for a number of years, I've known him. Paige Mulholland, who was president at Wright State when I was there, worked with him, and they've all been great mentors. But I think what's most important is for us in higher education is to think about creating that next generation of leaders. So at Bowling Green State University, we've created 2 leadership programs, and I actually work very closely with both of them. And I've been through the Center for Creative Leadership's seminars on becoming a strategic leader, and I use their book, and we have discussions and we have presentations. And so many times in universities, it's just about learning about the university as a whole. Many times we get in our silos and we only know our particular areas. And so how do you take a more university broad strategic idea of where the university should go and where it should be in the future? And I think that's so important to future leadership and mentoring others. So try to mentor as many others that want to be mentored.
I guess I'd also say similarly, working with presidents and learning the best parts from all of them, learning what works, what doesn't work. The person that I worked with very closely in Arkansas for 6 years, I actually called him last week and was talking to him, and I told him an example that I was in a meeting and it was getting a little bit tense, and I thought, okay, now what would Dave do in this situation? And he sort of laughed at that, and I thought, well, I had the good fortune there of he gave me a lot of latitude and flexibility. He was not a traditional academic, so he really was, he had been the VP for advancement. So he had given me the ability to do a lot internally, and I saw a lot in action, and I've learned from him. Spending time here, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Gouge, before that with Dr. Richardson, and seeing different styles and different personalities. And I want to share that I got to meet Dr. Cole in Toledo shortly after I came to Toledo. She was there giving a talk, and I invited her. She's our graduation speaker now in May, and she agreed to come, and I was thrilled to death with that. So.
I'm not sure I can add much to that. Of course, I too have had people who've supported me, male and female, that I can call. There are people I can call as soon as I encounter an issue, and that's one of the nice things about academic life, that you can put a call up a colleague in any other university, and people are very helpful. I also think it's very important that we have very formal systems of nurturing leadership. I participate in an annual leadership event in Pomona in California, where we bring together Asian Pacific women in academia, faculty and administrators, and we actually mentor them. They're assigned to the people who teach in that seminar, and we mentor them through the course of the next few years. And when they do resumes and send off applications, etc., they keep in touch with us. I have to tell you, not everybody uses the opportunity beyond the time of the seminar, but some people do. And last year I had one of the people there who was assigned to me, who applied and is now the Chief Diversity Officer in Harvard. And you know, when she wrote to me and told me about this, it was as if I had accomplished the greatest thing on some level, right? But it was good to see people who actually go through that seminar and then go on to all kinds of other positions. And I'm sure you know of many such programs all across the country, but we should have both the formal and the informal ways in which leadership is cultivated, I think.
Thank you. We're going to start from this side. For the next round, what do you do for fun?
So I played tennis, and I'm a maniac about tennis. I wasn't allowed to play tennis when I was growing up in India. My mother wouldn't let me. She insisted that it was something that would make me, as she put it, masculine. I think it was something else, and she wasn't telling me the truth. After I came to the US, I suddenly realized I'm not under my mother's control anymore. I can play tennis, and I started playing tennis. And I play tennis every morning at 5 o'clock until about 7:30 or 6:30, and then go into work. And then I sometimes play early in the morning at 5 and at 8:30 at night. So.
I was thinking, I can't beat that, right? I was going to answer the short, well, I don't have a lot of fun, but then I was thinking, so the truth is, you work quite a bit, and I will often have a breakfast and have a lunch and have a dinner and something afterward. And so there's not a lot of waking hours outside of that. So what do I do when I'm not working? And I have to say, I have the good fortune today of having one of my kids here, my daughter's here, and she flew in from Arkansas to be here. So I have 3 kids. My oldest daughter, who's a senior at the University of Arkansas, is here. I have a daughter who came to live with me in Toledo and is now a student at the University of Toledo. And I have a son who is a junior in high school. So when you have a 21, a 19, and a 17-year-old, you don't have a lot of other time. And so I've got that. And then couple that with, you eat a lot in this job. You do. You eat a lot, and when you're not enjoying things, you may drink a lot. You have to avoid that. I'm not shocked that I said that. So the reality is, I have a trainer actually come to the house Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. I get up and first thing work out with a trainer. Because if I didn't, I'm convinced that I would be about 800 pounds right now, because you go to events, you always have receptions, there's always wine. So literally always wine, right? But if I get up, and that is a great thing, and it's the time that I spend on me to make sure that I'm healthy. So that's a good thing.
Continuing the early morning trend, and my athletic director is here, and everybody knows at ASU I run at 5:30 in the morning. I've invited many of my students to come with me. Don't seem to get any takers, so I run. It not only to keep me healthy, but to keep me sane, because you release everything when you're running. I don't know if any runners are in the room. And that's what I do to, again, stay healthy, because we do eat a lot. You go to a lot of events. But what I enjoy is traveling. I've been to a lot of places and want to go back again. I've never been to India, though, so I need to go. South Africa, all parts of Africa, South America. all the islands. I love to travel. Don't get a chance to do it much in this job, but that's what I love to do.
First of all, I would say yes, travel, even in the job. I travel, so, just always traveling to meet with alums, and that's important. I mean, it's an important part of the position. But what I do for fun is, it's all about family. And it's all about taking good care of yourself. First of all, I have orange tennis shoes, and I walk all the time. I walk through Bowling Green, and everyone beeps their horns as I'm walking with my dog, and that's just great because you get to see people and you don't get lobbied when you're out walking, and that's good. But I'm very, very blessed with a great extended family. I have 2 sons that we talk about every day. I have 3 beautiful grandchildren that take me away from all of the job when I can get away to see them and vacation with them. And I have a brother that we talk on a regular basis about the trials and tribulations of being a university president.
Thank you, that was awesome. What would you hope your next leadership role to be?
Well, I'll start that one because I would say I'm in my last stop. As you can probably see, I'm the elder here, and it's as I've said at the beginning, it's living the American dream in terms of this position. I don't know when. I currently have 3 years left on my contract, but higher education and being in this position has been a real joy, and I've learned a great deal. But you just never know. You may, even after you retire, hopefully there's other things that you can do in life. Thank you.
I don't think you ever retire. You just move from one thing to the next. And I don't know if you're the oldest up here. We might be right about the same location, but I've been blessed to have a number of opportunities for leadership. I see members of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. I was the national president and had 4 wonderful years there. I've just signed 3 more years to Alabama State University, so I'll be there for at least 3 more years. And again, I treat this as an assignment and not a job. I'm an ordained minister, so I know God has me here for a season. And when that season is done, then He will send me somewhere else to do something else. So we just move until this dust returns to dust.
I am still so new that I am at Toledo. There's no looking beyond that at this point. I have a lot of good work to do there. Everywhere I go, and I'll go around town, and I'll go, to meetings, both on campus. They said, well, you've got a lot of opportunities, and I said, yes, I do. They have a lot of things that I can help work together with them to improve. So I view it as I've got a good 5-year plan there.
I honestly do not know. I'm aware of the fact that provosts last approximately about 7 years in their jobs. I don't mean that that wouldn't be the case here, I think. And I think I have a little bit more than 7 in my work life left for me. So I'm not really sure, but I have a lot to do where I am, and I'm enjoying the Pacific Northwest in a way that I never thought I would. I just didn't know it, and I love it there. So I don't know.
Well, I hope that each of you will continue to look in your crystal ball, because in a few years, we may be looking for somebody here, and we would be delighted to have any one of the 4 of you. I know that some of you already have orange clothing, so you don't need to buy a new wardrobe, so I just wanted to mention that. We've just got one last question, and this is where each of you get to ask your colleagues something that you would want to. So
What's the biggest challenge that you've ever had in terms of your position?
My biggest challenge is fundraising. I need more dollars than the government can print.
Well, I guess I'd ask you all, what's the best advice that you've received in your positions, since I'm the newbie still?
I think the best advice that I can give, coming through a storm, which you said you're in the midst of, you're in the midst of right now, but to know that the storm will pass. And you have to keep that first and foremost, even in the middle of the storm, that this too will pass. And it's not easy, it's not fun, it doesn't feel good, and you wonder, why in the world am I here? But you know that for all the students who are on your campus, that's why you're there. And if you keep that first and foremost, whatever storm, whatever challenge, it will come. Now, if the sun comes up, there's a challenge coming. You know? But just know it will pass.
What I've learned is for every problem, there's a solution. For every challenge, there's an opportunity. Be positive, be confident, and always remember, it's not about me. It's about building a university.
After that kind of eloquence, I'm not sure I have anything to say except to say ditto to those things. In the worst moments, you think it's the end of your career, you know, that you'll never really get over this particular bump. And somehow, there are so many great people in the community, in the academic world, who will help you, who will help you move to other things, will find ways to support you. And I have to say, I'm so grateful for the people I've met and on whom I can call at any time and say, I'm in a bit of a dilemma. Can you advise me on this? And I did that at Manhattanville when the NCAA issue was going on. I called Jim Harris, who was at that time president at Widener University, and he's now president at San Diego, University of San Diego. And he's the one who helped me through that whole thing, you know, looked at all the data, etc. There's always help around the corner, and there's always a turn that's possible from where you are.
And I'd just like to say that it was Jim Harris, a former colleague of mine, and he is a wonderful individual.
You've been a fantastic panel, and I know that the audience is perhaps just chomping at the bit to ask you a few questions. So,
Okay, if you can speak loudly, or I have a microphone. Go ahead, Audrey.
My name's Audrey Salgado, and the question is for Dr. Boyd about A&M and STEM. Would you share some of the things you're doing at A&M?
That's the biggest rivalry other than yours, Alabama State and A&M. We love you, but it's ASU.
I'll get out of the room quickly.
That deserves a big hug. As I said, I'm a mathematician and engineer by training, and one of the things that we're doing and working with General Quas at Maxwell Air Force Base, the president of Air University, and he is looking to establish for the Air Force Cyber College in Montgomery, and so we have